that's a lot of what I think about when we're approaching these partnerships is if everything goes south, how do we still win?
So, Josh, we've told investors about how Aries benefits from partnerships, but we've never really talked about the strategy that you use behind how you structure those partnerships, to reduce our risk and to ensure that there's a good win-win relationship. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Whenever I approach a deal or an opportunity like this, I'm always playing out worst case scenario where, okay, what's the worst case scenario? What does my team have that we can control the outcome? So, and if we can control the outcome, then I will design these partnerships and deals where we only have outcomes that are positive. So let's say everything bad happens. What am I left with at that point that makes both parties still happy? And that's really what we did with UFC, with Michael Chandler, with Macy Barber, with RJ Barrett, Canada Basketball. We designed all of these where we end up with the story, the assets of how the story is being told that we can then use through our distribution channels. So I'm not reliant on their distribution channels. Their distribution channels become just, we can't lose on those ones. So I take whatever we can control is really what's important to me. And every one of these has been designed where we have the story and the ability to tell the story in our own hands. That's always really critical to me. So, for example, one really cool thing that you've seen was a number of UFC fighters wearing the Aries at weigh-in, where there's cameras, there's news, and there's millions of people watching this. And we had a number of fighters wearing our product. That to me was awesome and really cool. That's distributed through their media channels, but then we also get those assets that we can then use and pump through our channels. And we have the control to then test and iterate and really optimize those to make sure they're reaching the right people and the right people are responding in the way that we are designing for. So that's a lot of what I think about when we're approaching these partnerships is if everything goes south, how do we still win?
Now, you use the term assets. So, for the investors that might not be as familiar with digital marketing, can you explain a little bit how our partnerships produce these assets that are so important for us?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I consider assets, a lot of it is just like, what are the different stories that we're able to tell and how are we able to tell them? And when we work with professional, clubs and athletes, celebrities, whatever they are, they have their own audience. And in addition to that increased awareness of their own audience, they provide a level of social proof that's really important for a category of product like ours. And I would say really uniquely with the UFC in particular, the access to the Performance Institute was a really critical component of our partnership with them. And if those that are not familiar with the Performance Institute, it truly is one of a kind institution where they're really at the forefront of human performance, human biometrics, and like measuring literally everything and really optimizing down to the individual fighter, what's best for them, how much training, how much, their what their nutrition looks like, the types of training. Really, it's just super fascinating. I mean, I can't even begin to explain the level of thought and science that's happening there. So that relationship was for one really, really critical to us. And that one took some time to really develop the tests that we had done with them, the demonstrations we'd done with them, and then coming out with a really strong testimonial from Duncan French and his team who lead the Performance Institute. That particular asset really didn't come to fruition and get into the market till sometime in Q4. And that created a lot of interesting buzz. We were able to do a first of its kind press conference in Madison Square Garden right before that fight in New York. That was really unique. The UFC's never done anything like that. And so we have this really cool story that we're able to share in collaboration with the Performance Institute. And again, to me, it's signaling that there is a market. We have an effective solution. We have the backing of a world-class partner like the UFC and the Performance Institute. And again, setting us up for 2025. Now we got to go share that story with as many people, that that are interested. And those that aren't interested, I have a pretty good feeling they will be interested, when they start to hear that. Again, going back to that idea of trust, from these assets, leveraging their distribution channels. We really are seeing it right now, really snowball.